Well, I'm glad to be here with you guys to be able to kick off this series on discipleship. And what I have to share with you tonight is really, I think, a very powerful metaphor to frame the context of the teachings that are going to come in this series. And let me share my screen. I have some slides to help walk through the message tonight. So my message is titled "A Long Obedience in the Same Direction." And this might seem to some a unusual expression, but we'll get into kind of why I think it really captures the heart of what discipleship is all about. And I think this phrase, "a long obedience in the same direction," it really implies two parts that are essential for discipleship. One is that there is a direction. Discipleship entails a direction, not omnidirectional, meaning in all directions, but a singular direction. And that's why it's a long obedience in the same direction. We'll talk about the direction component of discipleship, but the second part is that it entails a repetition, a pattern, a habit, you might say. And that's the descriptive of the word long. The obedience isn't temporary, it isn't fleeting or momentary. It is repetitious, it is a pattern, it's a habit that defines it as something that extends for a long time. Now, this phrase, "a long obedience in the same direction," it actually came from an atheist philosopher named Friedrich Nietzsche at the turn of the 20th century. And here's what he wrote. He said, "The essential thing in heaven and in earth is apparently," to repeat it once more, "that there should be long obedience in the same direction. There thereby results and has always resulted in the long run, something which has made life worth living. For instance, virtue, art, music, dancing, reason, spirituality, anything, whatever that is transfiguring, refined, foolish, or divine. It's a long obedience in the same direction," he says, "is what makes life worth living." Now, what he's saying is that really a meaningful life isn't that you hop to and fro to different things and that you kind of flip from here to there, but you dedicate yourself to something. And he kind of rounds it out to just whatever it is. If it's virtue, if it's art, if it's music or dancing or reason or spirituality, he says the important thing is that you develop a long obedience in the same direction. Now, this phrase was actually picked up, and where I originally heard it from was from a person that maybe you all are familiar with or not, but his name is Eugene Peterson. And he's a pastor of a small church in Oregon. He passed away in 2018. And you probably know him because he was the one who did the translation called The Message, or the Message Bible. Now, I read one of his books a couple years ago called "A Long Obedience in the Same Direction," where he picked up on the quote from Friedrich Nietzsche about what makes life worth living. And he turned it and on its head sort of and aimed it at the Christian life, in that the Christian life is worth living because the obedience that follows in discipleship, and that discipleship can be characterized as a long obedience in the same direction. So if you guys have your Bibles, we're going to go to the Gospel of John, John chapter 15 to begin with. And I want to start here in the Gospel of John in chapter 15, because I think the ideas that Jesus presents here are kind of the core idea in discipleship. Like, why be a disciple? What Jesus says, he says, I am the true vine, and my Father is the vine dresser. Every branch in me that does not produce fruit, he takes it away. And every branch that produces fruit, he prunes it so that it can produce more fruit. Already you are clean because of the word that I have spoken to you. Live in union with me, and I will live in union with you. As the branch is not able to produce fruit by itself unless it lives in union with the vine, so neither can you unless you live in union with me. I am the vine, you are the branches. The one who lives in union with me, and I in him, that is the one who will bear much fruit. Because apart from me, you are not able to do anything. If anyone does not live in union with me, he's thrown away like a branch and withers, and they gather them and throw them into the fire, and they are burned. If you live in union with me, and my words live in you, ask whatever you want, and it will be done for you. By this is my Father glorified, that you bear much fruit and prove to be my disciples. Discipleship is being a follower of Christ. And Christ is saying to his disciples here that if they do not follow him, if they do not continue to be discipled by him, then they're not going to bear fruit. And if they don't stay connected to him, they're not able to do anything, he says. It is in connection with the vine, who is Jesus. That's where the nourishment of the Christian life and the fruit that abounds because of it, that's where it exists. So Jesus is saying that for his disciples to continue to follow him, to listen to him, and to absorb his teachings, and thereby bear the fruit that comes from that union and prove that they truly are his disciples. Another Christian philosopher that I admire and think has done a lot of great work is Dallas Willard. And in one of his books, he has a quote that really strikes me as kind of the heart of the dilemma that Christians face, not just today, but throughout all ages. But I think our modern day is facing some very particular challenges. What he says the greatest issue for Christians is that, he says, most problems in contemporary churches can be explained by the fact that members have never decided to follow Christ. For at least several decades, the churches have not made discipleship a condition of being a Christian. One is not required to be or to intend to even be a disciple in order to become a Christian. And one may remain a Christian without any signs of progress toward or in discipleship. So the greatest issue facing the world today with all its heartbreaking needs is whether those who by profession or culture are identified as Christians will become disciples. That is, students, apprentices, practitioners of Jesus Christ, steadily learning from him how to live the life of the kingdom of the heavens in every corner of human existence. To be a Christian means to be a disciple. And Dallas Willard is saying too many Christians don't understand that you can't be Christian without being a disciple. The two are not exclusive. They're required. You have to be a disciple to be a Christian. You have to be a follower to be a Christian. And I like how he defined the disciples here as those who are students. That means we are learning from Jesus, apprentices. We are following the pattern of his life and imitating it. And we're practitioners. We're putting into action the word that he has given to us. In John 15, Jesus talked about that if the word that I've given to you lives in you, that is what is part of bearing the fruit. You have to have his word living in you. Willard goes on to say, will these Christians, will they break out of the churches because they're disciples in order to be his church to be without human force or violence? So nobody's forcing them. They're just doing it because they're disciples, and become his mighty force for good on earth, drawing the churches after them toward the eternal purposes of God. And on its own scale, there is no greater issue facing the individual human being, Christian or not. When I said that there were two things that are involved in discipleship, there was direction and there was repetition. In Deuteronomy chapter 5, it talks about the direction. I don't have the slides, so I'm just going to pull it up here on the screen. Deuteronomy 5, chapter 32. This is Moses here in the reiteration of the law to the children of Israel, the tribes of the sons of Jacob. And what Moses says is, you are to be careful to do as Yahweh your God has commanded you. You're not to turn aside to the right hand or to the left. You're to walk in all the ways that Yahweh your God has commanded you, so that you will live, and so that it will be well with you, and so that you will prolong your days in the land that you are going to possess. There is a path that Yahweh had set before the people of Israel, and they were to follow that path. They were not to deviate from it. The direction had been set, and it wasn't turn to the left or turn to the right or turn backward. It was to go on ahead in the path that Yahweh had laid out for them. Not only physically, which was they were to follow Yahweh, where he appeared as a cloud of smoke during the day and a pillar of fire at night, but they were to follow in his ways. They were to follow his law that he had given to them. Now, if we think about the direction of discipleship, and if we think about our Christian lives and how we have followed Jesus, this might be the way that our path might look. A nice, clean road where we see where we're going, nice and straight. How many of you have a journey in your faith that looks so nice and neat like this?
Ah.
I can tell you, I haven't lived on the earth a whole lot of years yet. I am middle-aged now, so I guess I'm no longer young. But my journey didn't look like this, and I'd be surprised if anybody told me that theirs did. I think more realistically, this is what our journey looks like. This is the sort of path we take in discipleship, in forming our lives to be like Christ. We might go a little here, a little there, and maybe we're going back and forth, but even with the back and forth, you see that this road does go in a direction. It eventually follows a trajectory, even if it's not straight and linear the whole way. So the idea of discipleship is not about perfection, but it is about keeping your eye on where you're going. And then if you are off, then to get back on the path. Now, the path brings up kind of an idea in the Bible. Another metaphor that's often used of living life is to be walking. To walk in a certain way means to live in a certain way. But I want to look more at kind of the literal idea then of if we're to walk or live in a certain way, sometimes we have to walk a lot in order to get where we're going. And this is definitely seen in, for example, Genesis chapter 12. And Genesis chapter 12, we get the beginning of Abraham. So God decides to focus on his redemptive purposes through one family, Abraham with his wife Sarah. He tells Abraham, go from your country and from your relatives and from your father's house and go to the land that I will show you. And I will make you a great nation, and I will bless you, and I will make your name great, and you will be a blessing. And I will bless those who bless you, and one who treats you with contempt, I will curse. And all the clans of the earth will be blessed by you. I want to focus on the beginning, where God tells Abraham to go. He tells Abraham to leave his country and to go to the land that God is going to show him. If you've never seen a Bible map of Abraham's journey, it is staggering. His journey was a very long one. So he left Ur of the Chaldees down near Babylonia. He left that with his father, and they settled up here in the top in Haran. Maybe I can get... So down here, this is where he started at. He traveled up the Euphrates here to Haran. Now, this is some 700 miles or about. This is not a quick journey. This takes months. And then God calls him here in Genesis chapter 12 to leave the country that he's in and to go into the land that he will show him. He didn't even specify the land. He just told him, go, follow me in the direction that I will lead you. So he ends up then getting led down here to the land of Canaan, which is another some 700 or so miles about. Again, another extremely long and arduous journey. And then from there, he even goes another, I think, 500 miles over here into Egypt. It's incredible the discipline that Abraham exhibited in listening to God's instruction and following it. And so this is not just a simple like, oh, Abraham did it, this one day and then he was in his new place. He had to get up and walk every day. Because in the ancient world, they didn't have any modern means of transportation. They basically walked and had camels or goats or donkeys, and they some of them rode them, but a lot of people walked. So he got up and he walked every day for months. I wish I could speak from experience on walking like this every day. And I do have aspirations at some point in my life to make a pilgrimage. There's a famous pathway that leads from southern France all the way across the top part of Spain to Santiago on the coast. It's called the Camino de Santiago. And this journey is about 500 miles or 800 kilometers. And all you do as the pilgrim is you get up and you walk 12 to 16 miles or so a day. And then you stay at a hostel or a lodge, and then you get up and you walk again the next day. And you do this for about 30 days straight. Have any of you ever done something the same every day for 30 days straight? I never have, but I'd like to do this journey, and I think the Lord will show me a lot of things along the way when I have to get up, and it's just me and the path in front of me, putting one foot in front of the other, because that's what discipleship is. It's getting up each day, and it's doing the same thing every day, following Jesus, putting one foot in front of the other. Now, some days it's more difficult than others, and that's life, isn't it? The path isn't always level and easy. Sometimes it's treacherous. Sometimes you have to climb, and sometimes you have to walk through mud. If any of you are interested or want to know more about the Camino de Santiago, there's actually a really cool movie made back in 2010 called The Way, and it's with Martin Sheen, and it's about his journey, his pilgrimage on the Camino de Santiago. There's a number of different illustrations that I could use to try to help drive this point home more, but I recently saw I saw another movie that really inspired me. And I want to share with you guys the story of a man named Jose Hernandez. Let me try and I have a picture here of him. There he is, Jose Hernandez. So Jose, he was born in 1962 in California, and he was part of a family that were migrant farmers from Mexico, and they would come up to Southern California, and they would work their way up California during the springtime, moving from farm to farm to farm, picking vegetables. It's a difficult life and hard on the family because Hernandez and his siblings would have to move schools every 3 months, and they would be in 4 different schools every year. Well, Hernandez, he wanted to go to space. Ever since he heard about the space program and the first Hispanic American who went to space, he says he was hoeing a row of sugar beets in a field near Stockton, California, and he was listening on his transistor radio that a man named Franklin Chang Diaz had been selected for the NASA astronaut corps. And Hernandez says that he was in high school, and immediately he was interested in science and engineering, and he knew that he wanted to fly into space. Well, Hernandez shared his dream of becoming an astronaut, and really, it really kind of took form when he saw the Apollo 11 moon landing. The Apollo 17 moon landing in 1972. He was holding up these bunny ears, he said, on a black and white television, and he told his dad that he wanted to go to the moon. Well, his dad shared 5 pieces of very important advice. He says, son, you need to, number 1, find your goal. Number 2, you need to know how far you are from it. 3, you need to draw a roadmap for how to get there. And number 4, if you don't know how, then learn. And number 5, when you think you have made it, you probably have to work harder. Well, after graduating high school, Hernandez enrolled in college, got himself a master's degree in electrical engineering, and got a job working at Lawrence Livermore National Laboratory. And it was in then 1992 that he began to apply for the NASA space program to become an astronaut. Well, the day came when he got his admission letter back in the mailbox. He was so excited, and he opened it up only to read the words, "Thank you for applying, but we regret to inform you you have not been selected for NASA's astronaut program." You can imagine when you have expectations and then they don't get met, your heart sinks. But this was not the end of his attempts. He was not ready to give up. So he decided he was going to apply again. And so the following year, he sent in another application, but he received the same reply back. Well, this went on for years. Every year, Hernandez would submit his application to NASA, only to be turned down again and again. Well, he knew he had to become a more competitive applicant, so he started working on his skills and personal performance to distinguish himself. He began taking flight lessons. He learned how to scuba dive. He started learning Russian. And in order to increase his chances of being accepted, he got a new engineering position at the Johnson Space Center. Well, still, each year he would submit his application only to receive the subsequent letter telling him he was not chosen to be part of the program. But then in 2004, for his 12th application, Hernandez decided to personally deliver it. So he went to Houston, stopped by NASA, and walked into astronaut and Commander Frederick Sturcow's office to hand deliver his application to him. I want to play you guys a short clip of a recent movie that was made based on the life of Jose Hernandez. And it kind of captures the interaction they had. And I think it demonstrates just how much tenacity Hernandez displayed in never giving up all the years that he was applying to NASA.
Mr. Sturckow?
Sturckow.
Mr. Sturckow.
Yeah.
Jose Hernandez.
Jose Hernandez.
Yes, sir.
Oh. What are you doing here?
Well, I decided to personally bring in my application this year.
Oh. Where'd you fly in from?
Stockton, California, sir.
You could have just mailed it.
I could have, but I wanted to meet you and hand it to you personally.
All right, Hernandez. This is going to be your 11th attempt, and I appreciate your persistence, and I thank you for coming all the way down here, but I really wish you'd have saved yourself the airfare.
Sir, if I may, this is my strongest application yet, and this would be my 12th attempt, not my 11th.
Okay, let's hear it.
I'm sorry, sir?
What's changed? What's different this time?
Over the course of the last 10 years, every academic, professional, and personal decision I've made with the space program in mind.
Sure.
I have my master's in electrical engineering. I'm a pilot now with over 800 hours under my belt. I have my scuba diving certificate. I just ran the San Francisco Marathon.
Wow.
And I speak Russian, sir. In fact, I volunteered to travel to Siberia as part of the transparency program for the U.S. Department of Energy. I'm the father of 5 most perfect children, and then the husband of the most incredible wife who threatened to leave me if I didn't come here today. I've applied 12 times, and yes, sir, I've been on the verge of giving up after each and every rejection, but you know what, sir? Here I am. So you could turn me down again, but rest assured, I'll be standing here again in a year.
All right, Mr. Hernandez.
Thank you, sir.
Now, keep in mind, this is a rendition of the incident, but Hernandez did travel to turn in his application in person. And I like the way the dialogue went that Hernandez presented himself as one who was tempted to give up after each rejection, but he didn't. He showed up each time and eventually even went down to meet the commander in person. And the attitude was, if he gets turned down again, he's not giving up. He's going to come back the next year. That's what it takes. It takes that persistence. And it was actually in 2009 that Hernandez, it was in 2004, Hernandez got selected to be part of NASA's astronaut program, and in 2009 chosen to participate on the mission aboard the space shuttle Discovery, which went to the International Space Station for 13 days. So Hernandez was able to achieve his dream and the thing that he long pursued for so long. And I want to close by giving you the wisdom of a proverb. And this is actually in the Words of Wisdom podcast that I do. I'm actually going to be releasing an episode here on this particular proverb, because I think this helps us frame discipleship, from a perspective of the Old Testament wisdom literature. Proverbs 24:16 says that, "For a righteous person will fall 7 times and he stands back up, but the wicked stumble in times of distress." The righteous person will fall 7 times, meaning repeatedly. It's an unknown number of times, but every time he falls, he gets back up. But this is not so with the wicked. They will stumble and fall and remain fallen during times of distress. Now, how this applies then to discipleship is that a long obedience in the same direction is not about being perfect, but persistent. If you fall down, if you get rejected, if you struggle in life, if you face hardship, if you experience an awful calamity or deep sorrow and pain, Yahweh, our God, provides strength and comfort to endure any situation. There's no temptation too great that God has not provided a way to be able to endure through it. That is the persistence of following Jesus as our example, that we don't give up, but we exhibit as disciples a level of determination to remain connected to the vine, the very life source of the fruit that we bear as Christians, as disciples and followers of Jesus. So that is a long obedience in the same direction to set up our series talking about discipleship. Thank you.